Now what? All I want to do is nothing, and I can't even do that.
It's podcasting time.
Indeed, it is, Ryder. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Cheap Seat Critics podcast, where for this season of pilots, we are doing Stand Against Evil. Clap!
Yay!
Woo.
Yeah! Well, with me
First
today, we
choice.
have.
Hello, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, your geeky writer.
I'm Chris Mernon.
And I'm Sprinks, and hey, you look up Cheap Seat Critics Podcast on the interwebs, you'll find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Rumble for visual stuff, where we got PNG tubers, we got a slideshow over there if you're more visually inclined. Yes, I know, audio podcast, but hey, it's an option. Also have a letterbox if you're interested in the averaged out graphs and numbers of everything we've covered.
Well put, sir. And as mentioned, Stand Against Evil from 2016. Ended in 2019. It only got 3 seasons, unfortunately.
Man, I can't imagine why.
What are
Unfortunately,
you hinting at? What are you hinting at here?
peeky behind the curtain of
Uh,
the ratings.
Yeah. I'll start with some facts. As I said, 3 seasons. Each one had 8 episodes, so a total of 24, which is not that many. 2016, there were a lot of shows didn't have like 8. That was, I guess, when it was starting with all the streaming buzz, right?
That sounds about right. We had the
Yeah.
streaming boom that, like, COVID put into overdrive.
This released on Halloween of 2016, actually. So fitting. The actor for Stan co-produced the show. He had some backing for it. The sheriff's office. Did either of you recognize that from anything?
Um,
It reminded me a little bit of Walking Dead, but no, I don't think I recognize it from anything.
Stranger Things. I don't know.
Correct. That
Oh,
is the police station from Stranger Things. Good,
wow.
good guess. Yeah. You, at least to me, I recognized it with the Hopper uh, introduction in the office. But
Coffee and
yeah, same.
contemplation.
Yeah, same place. Yeah, coffee and contemplation. It apparently took 3 days to shoot each episode, which would be about 12 pages of the script. But something very unorthodox with this show is they would film the entire season and not just episode to episode. So they could be filming like 3 episodes at the same location back to back, which confused the actors and cast when filming stuff.
Well, if the scripts were written ahead of time, I suppose it wouldn't be too much of an issue. But sounds like they
Yeah.
weren't.
Interesting.
Well, they did to film them all next to each other, but they didn't film it in order. It was all jumbled.
I
Like
guess that could help.
if they're at the police station, they could have a scene from episode 1, 4, and
Yeah.
8 there back to back.
I guess that kind of helps with the acting of Stan, kind of being aloof to stuff.
What's going on here? I guess that's true. So Stan was originally written as a 70-year-old man, but John McGinley, who played him, is 57. So he gained 20 pounds, grew a beard, and tinted his hair gray for the role.
Wow.
Well, he certainly looks like he's in his 70s. No.
Dedication. No, I
He
would.
looks
I
70 to you?
60s. I think safe 60s. He's already close to 60 by himself.
Like, he doesn't look wrinkly enough. Unless, hey,
Uh,
he's just a
it's
big, skincare routine.
could be, could be. Speaking of writing, since you brought it up, writer, the entire season, all 3 of them, took 6 days to write for each season.
Yeah, I can tell.
You can tell. What? Yeah, 18 days, I guess, total to write 3 seasons of a show. Put them back to back. And there's the facts that I could find. There are a few others, but I couldn't really find anything pilot specific in terms of facts. Hard to do that. Any
Okay.
facts from you guys before I move on to our histories?
No, no.
Nope.
Histories, starting with writer.
All right. Uh, none. And this is my first time. Never heard of it. And yeah, that's it.
All right. Not much of an IFC guy. I think that's what it aired on.
I'd never even heard of that.
Yeah,
So
who is an
yes.
Oh,
IFC guy?
okay. That's also true. Who is? Sprinks, you can go next.
Yeah. So watching this pilot made thoughts tickle in my mind. I have seen this before with Crimson. I don't know if Sinistra was present when that happened, um, but Crimson has shown me the pilot before. However, watching it for the pod, Crimson sent me uh, a link to watch it, and I was on the wrong episode. So I watched the complete episode 8, the last episode of the season, and took notes on that, thinking it was the pilot, until I was corrected, and then I watched the pilot.
A unique story for sure. I don't know how many people have seen this show from the finale to the beginning like that. Um, so pretty fun history there. I'll piggyback off that with my history of I did show it the Sinister and you at the same time at Sinister's house, uh, and I couldn't believe when you told me that you saw the finale, um, how obvious or not obvious it would have been because I haven't seen the entire show. So after I did my notes for the pilot, I went and watched episode 8 as well, just to get the experience that you got, Sprinks. And I won't get into it much, but I did experience it.
Yeah, I
I
guess
have seen
enough
the.
for me. It was not obvious.
I will agree. It was not super obvious that it was a finale, but I don't think it was a felt like a pilot either, though. I feel like it would be like a middle episode. I've seen the pilot 3 times. I think I've seen episode 2 and 3 when it was airing, but I have no memory of it really. Yeah, it'd be one of those. It clicks once I start watching it, but I certainly didn't see the whole season. And that would be it. We will be doing the popcorn structure for this one, nice and quick. I know we're going to have 1,000 points to make on this one. Hopefully, it's not 10 hours long.
It was very jam packed. 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Just like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, jam
Oh
packed.
boy,
Every scene was good.
what a
So,
comparison.
uh, yeah. So if you have a
So
point,
that's the sound of your
jump
grave
in
that
there.
you're digging yourself, Crimson.
What? I don't know what you're talking about. And well, we'll start with Ryder making a point here. I'm sure you got
uh,
one because we haven't started yet.
that's true. I I thought the intro was funny and entertaining. Like, it was a throwback clearly to like the 80s, 90s intros.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, caught my attention with that. I quite enjoyed it. It helped. Uh, well, it tried to help set the mood, I guess, for what I was in for.
It tried. I felt
It
like it
tried.
did. It tells you the humor they're going for, kind of the setting we're going to be living in.
Oh, to make sure we're on the
It
same page,
establishes some stuff.
Ryder, are you talking about the opening scene, or are you talking about the intro of the show, like the title
I'm
sequence?
talking about the intro to the show, the title sequence.
Okay.
Oh, the title sequence.
Yeah, talking about the title sequence.
Oh, I thought you were talking about
The intro, the
the show
first
for
scene of the
48
show. Yeah,
years.
I thought the remark towards uh poetry was funny. There was that.
Mhm.
Um, and I thought the intro served as a good intro to Stan uh, as a character. Question is, will that stay that way as we go along?
Sure, for 28 years, and I've never been tied to a stake because my wife was protecting me and I was unaware of it. Which is an interesting line because at this point he knows his wife has been protecting him. So a little weird.
Yep.
But Stan is not the most self-aware of individuals.
No, he is not.
No, he's not.
Uh,
Well,
Springs,
since
maybe?
no,
No. Ryder,
yeah,
continue your
well,
thought first.
yeah, okay. I was gonna say the reason that the intro doesn't do as well for me is because there are changes made when we return to the same spot later on. Like there's additions and other things, so it doesn't have as much meaning. And also, the course of the story kind of butchers the intro's opening to Stan. So
Yeah, it's certainly utilized more as a hook than anything.
yeah,
And the show as a whole, I think each episode does that, an initial hook,
interesting.
which just shows a snippet from the episode, which to me is kind of a waste of time because this is only a 22-minute episode.
Yeah,
And to use like 30, 45 seconds, however long it was, maybe a minute, it seems like a waste.
Yeah, about that. Sure.
After watching it, I just felt like this would have been a better, like, 45-minute episode or show. Feels like they tried to cram a lot in this 22 minutes with crammed as in not full of information, but everything felt too fast. Like the witch just
Ye-
hopping around, being
It's very
everywhere and
jumpy.
stuff.
yeah. I'll say
Yeah.
the pacing is awful. Sure.
Yes. The pacing would have benefited from being longer for sure. We'll go to specs.
Um, let's see. I noticed they're very prominent. First, like Dutch angle on the priest at the funeral at the beginning, which to me made it seem
Yeah.
like the priest was either made the priest stand out, whether it was to be an evil entity or the only sane normal person here.
True. Sure. Yeah. I noticed that they use a few Dutch angles in this episode.
Oh yeah, that's the most I think creative cinematography they use.
Um, yeah. Yeah. It's pretty standard otherwise. Can agree with that. I, in terms of the priest, I did find it amusing how he just got shoved into the hole. I don't know why the thing holding the coffin would be so fragile to just snap like that, but still kind of amusing.
It's true.
Yeah, Crimson, it wouldn't. That
No, it wouldn't.
it wouldn't be
He
that
would have just
On
fragile.
that,
rolled over the top of it and maybe knocked off the flowers, which would still be funny, but not as, I guess, dramatic.
I mean, unless that priest is way more dense than he looks. He's a heavy guy.
Could be.
It's possible. Maybe he's a witch. Maybe we'll find that out later.
Uh,
Speaking of the witch at the funeral, uh, it seemed weird that no one really saw anything
yeah, I wrote that
except
down
Stan.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wrote that down too. Um, Everyone would be able to see it, so and clearly she can interact with other people. So
Yeah, her being flirtatious, I don't know if anyone like people could see it, but I don't think that's a cause for alarm. Her shifting into the witch look, that would be a
Yeah.
thing. The only
Absolutely.
thing that's not really, at least not to me, I don't know if it's onto the individual targeted that they can see it versus a whole. Like, was that only targeted to Stan's eyes to Stan see her like that?
And that would have to be the best faith you could give it. Because I mean, we do have like at the end where Evie and Stan can see her, unless you're going with well, she's allowing them both to see her that way. Uh, but eh,
the problem is she directly interacts with other people, like the babysitter, the deputy.
Yeah.
While she's not
oh,
transformed, she's directly interacting with them.
he's saying that she's projecting her witch image to an individual and not as a collective to the world to
Um,
scare them, I guess.
it's possible. It's the best faith interpretation for sure, but we don't really get anything to kind of support that.
Yeah, the only support I'm getting out of that is that no one reacted when it happened,
Yeah.
except Stan.
Yeah, I would agree. That would be the only bit. But everyone took that pretty well. The beating. Only the priest tried to intervene. Everyone else was pretty okay with him beating up an old lady.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
the
even if
newspaper after that said Sheriff Miller went crazy bananas.
crazy
Yeah.
bananas.
Well, and I like the little side bit on the newspaper that said, "Clouds look like dump truck. Dump truck," says man.
Yeah, the newspapers were very funny to read. There was one at the start of the intro too that was pretty good, or the title sequence. Sorry.
Mhm. I did
Um,
check the one that was um, the Witch Anniversary one.
Mhm.
I did read that
Yeah.
over, and it was a functioning article that read smoothly. It wasn't just like jumbled up random words. The reason I
nice.
wrote that
Was
down is
there any
because
information from it?
not exactly. It says that it's the paper releases Thursday, June 9th, 2016, so it's taking place in June. Um, and I just wrote it down because it said which anniversary brings mysterious screams and pie contest.
Yeah, pie contest.
Hmm.
Don't really know how pies connect to witchcraft. A- Any party, I
It
suppose.
connects to some of the conversation later for sure. Anyway,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that the priest is also trying to butter Stan up, and he's just not Stan is just isn't having it.
What'd you say about priest?
The priest is trying to like, doesn't he? Isn't there a joke that's correct? Like he's tries to say Stan's name, and then settles
Oh
on
yeah,
Sheriff Miller at the end. Like he tries to go through like several iterations of what how he should talk about him.
Stanley Miller, but we like to call him Stan. Stanley. Sheriff
Sheriff Miller.
Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Completely intimidated by Stan.
Stan just throws him a look that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think I forgot the actor's name, but I think he does a good job with his facial expressions through this.
Stanley.
Yeah, Stan
Yeah,
has some good
yeah, he
faces.
does fine.
yeah, does a good job in the role for sure.
Writer, you got a point?
Sure. I already cracked a joke, I think, off the pod about the sheriff looking like a knockoff of Nicole Kidman, and I think it is the eyes. You're right, Crimson.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, she's got very similar eyes.
Sheriff
yeah,
Evie,
uh,
not Sheriff Miller.
yeah,
Just
Sheriff
to
Evie.
clear the air on that.
Yeah.
Um, there are some bright spots, I guess, in the writing and acting. One of them is when Evie realized that the Miller hasn't been home, or Stan hasn't been home, and
Mhm.
kind of the tone shift that we get from like uh, it's sort of comedy that transitions into like uh something a little more heartfelt, which I guess I liked that.
Yeah, he spent the whole interaction pretty much insulting her, making fun of her, building up a wall of this tough guy, and then we get a peek that he's not just this tough guy facade.
I like the line delivery he gives that he hasn't been home.
Not so much, yeah. And I'm gonna
Not
praise
much.
this here once because I there are times where movies do this sort of thing, and I actually really hate it because it's visual storytelling, quote unquote, and there is times where movies don't do it well, and there are times where it is done well. And I think when he hangs up the keys when he first gets home and kind of brushes his hand over where his wife's keys hangs, I actually quite like that. And the reason for it is because, like, yeah, it makes sense. They haven't had time to remove it. That's there for a reason. Um, so like, it has reason to be there in the shot, and it adds to the character why he would, brush his hand over it. Um,
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think the brushing might be a little much, but I do like the acknowledgement of it, of
yeah.
what he's missing, stuff.
Yeah, like
It's a
he
good
does. The
addition.
rushing might be or like a little too much. I'm in agreement with that, but like I said, it still serves a purpose.
Yeah.
And it's not because like I said, it's one of those, I think those times where visual storytelling is actually does a good job. Like it's not over the top.
Yeah, not over the top like a babysitter's head on a chair or anything.
Yikes. But
What a
yes,
jump!
Yes.
Mhm.
Sprix, would you like to
I.
go?
It's so loony. The deputy's name. Uh,
Yeah, it is.
Leon Drinkwater.
Drink water.
He's reminding you to drink water
How'd
with his
that
last name.
pass? Is that
So
is that an
how did it
inside
pass?
joke? Is it like I'm trying to think? Where's that the reasoning for the name?
Why can't that be someone's last name?
Drinkwater?
Yeah.
So silly.
What's a lot of people's last names rooted in, right? I mean, uh, um, like, oh man, all of mine are like racially driven. Like the last name Brown, I guess, right? That's rooted in something.
I mean,
Uh,
we can't talk about it on the podcast, but my last name is pretty funny.
Sure.
that's true. Uh, and Sinister's kind of be considered as amusing as well. I mean, what's the origin of my
Crimson,
name?
your last name's pretty. I think the funniest of them all. But anywho,
Yeah, so
Drinkwater is
I drink water. I
It
think
also.
it's
fits. I just have questions. I don't
Yeah,
really.
I feel like it's a setup to a joke later.
It could be.
it could be
My last
23
name
other
certainly is
episodes.
set up to a joke.
Right? You got to stop hamming up your last name here. Okay? The audience will never know what it is.
That's true.
I had a point. I did. The point being that we learn that there's 172. Yes, 172 witches, and at the very end, she's like, "All right, 171 to go, pretty much." I'm like, so Claire
Well,
killed none of them?
yeah, I wrote that down as well. Could be fewer since Claire's been protecting Stan for 28 years.
Yeah, she doesn't have like a list that scratches off all the names of the ones she's taken care of.
They just haven't
Evidently,
gotten that far in
Buffy
the book
really
yet.
went off the end and just forgot how to kill vampires or something. I don't know. For
She
a witch
just
hunter,
scares
they're
them
not doing
away.
very much witch hunting.
Well,
She
they're
just
new.
scares them away, I guess.
They're new to the game.
Maybe.
Can I just whack her with a pipe? Several pipes?
Yeah.
It works. Kind
I
of.
think my favorite line delivery from Stan is when he finds out where his wife's necklace is buried, and he's just like, "In the grave." That's just terrific work.
It's just terrific work.
I think that was my favorite line delivery in this.
Well, yeah, because it's connected to not the lack of liking of his daughter, but the way he kind of sees her as kind of a hindrance or an
Yeah,
annoyance.
She didn't
it's
eat
just
in
And
someone
like
he has
of
to
3
take
course he
care
did
of.
days.
that.
To be fair,
Yeah.
her first scene doesn't really dispute that. It's like, I'm hungry. I want a sandwich.
I haven't eaten for 3 days. Man. Well, she had some goldfish or something. I forgot what it was.
Oh yeah, it's had goldfish. That was it.
Yeah, Denise, I think was her name. Yeah. She didn't get much screen time in the pilot. Do you think she got enough for the character?
You
Yeah.
get enough at least of a template.
She has more than Deputy Leon.
That's true. I don't know if we need more Leon for the pilot. I don't I don't know if we need more of Denise either. We'll just
And
throw her in
all
the
Leon
basket.
really needs to get across is he's just happy not to be the sheriff.
Yeah. Because they all die. But Stan didn't. You're right. Someone's looking over him, looking out for him.
Hmm.
Oh, writer point. Boom. Bing.
Okay. Uh, I think the witch going to visit the witch goes to visit the sheriff at his place. No. She visits sheriff at the. Sorry, I'm talking about Evie. I'm just gonna call him Evie and Stan from now on because that's just
Sounds good.
easier. Uh, the sheriff goes to visit Evie in the at uh
The
at
witch.
work, pretty much. So it gives Evie a character trait that she takes walk-ins, which kind of makes sense. It's a small town. Why wouldn't she take walk-ins? Um, but obviously the witch is there to threaten her.
Yes. The witch's motives are interesting to me because why did she need to kidnap the daughter and stuff? Why didn't she just kill her there if she wanted her dead?
Well, it's not just
Yeah,
Don't
any
really
sort
know.
of killing. She
she,
has to
she,
burn her at a stake.
yeah,
Okay, why did she just take her from the police station? She could
yeah,
have.
well, she wants the Seeing Stone, and I don't understand why she wants the Seeing Stone.
Best guess is then so she could read the book.
Yeah,
Maybe, yeah.
I I would imagine there's some ritual that requires it. And Evie says that Stan and her might be cursed by this, but maybe the witches are cursed, right? They're still here after all this time. They probably just want to die. Maybe there's something in the book for that. I don't know.
Could be.
Possibly.
No idea.
Uh,
The
the witch
drawing.
also
Oh,
has. Sorry, you know what? You go. You go,
I
Springs.
was gonna say the drawing in the book of the raven figure or crow person. I
Yeah.
thought it was a Skeksis, and still could be a Skeksis.
For the audience that
Yeah,
don't
no
know
one
what
knows what a
that is,
Skeksis is. Those are the bird-like creatures in the Dark Crystal.
okay, I've seen images of those. I've not seen it. I
Yeah.
mean, it would be an interesting little crossover. Is it an actual mythological creature? Is it unique to Dark Crystal?
It's unique to Dark Crystal.
Okay,
No,
then yes, that would be an
yeah.
interesting crossover.
I'll say this about the witch. She strikes in broad daylight, which is unique to her. Not many. The reason I'm saying it's not unique. It's not unique, necessarily unique to her, but it's different because a lot of monsters don't do that typically.
Typically, yeah, yeah, that's true.
Shows she has no weakness to sunlight.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's not a vampire. We got that. Not a vampire witch.
Well, there's other
We got that covered.
creatures that are weak to sunlight besides vampires.
I'm
Yeah.
going with the common one.
I like that
Uh,
during the not introduction, but the witch talking to Evie in the office. The witch is the one who answers back with a question as well. So it's not just a trait out of Evie throughout the episode. The witch does it.
yeah, just women. No, Stan does it several times as well, which is what makes it funny to me. They do keep that going through the episode for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what does it look like I'm doing? That's one of the things
Hmm.
that he says back. Um, Evie can't doesn't know how to do stakeouts in her sheriff car.
Not at all.
I thought it was funny where when Stan drives off to like go dig up the grave, and then it just cuts down on a very open street that's completely visible to Evie waiting in her car.
Yeah, very visible right in front of his property.
Yep. No attempts to hide it.
No, and he probably saw her because he didn't really act surprised that she was there when he was digging.
Probably.
What are you doing? What does it look like I'm doing? Digging up my wife. Ugh. Mhm. I can't do his voice. I'm not gruffly or gravelly. Let's talk a little bit about Evie. More specifically, the fact that she threatened to kill somebody is as the current sheriff. And I do like how he latched on to that and brought it up later. that she threatened to kill him. That's not something you would do in that scenario.
Um, yeah, I think a lot of that's just her getting really annoyed with Stan, which from her perspective I totally get because Stan's been kind of an asshole to her.
He has,
Yeah.
but it's
Well,
not very
definitely.
professional of her.
No, but also I would say in the mindset of Stan that he kind of unlawfully lost his position as sheriff because he was doing his job of what he saw, but we never get to see him like fight back his reasonings of like what he saw. It's just kind of accepted.
Uh, I think he resigned, so I think he did it of his choice. So it wasn't unlawful, right?
I mean, he assaulted a woman. That's probably unlawful.
Yeah.
But he did. The paper said he resigned. That is
Oh,
correct.
okay. He stepped down
Yeah.
himself.
We don't know if it
Or
was a forced resign,
yeah, it's not really clear if whether it was a forced resign or not. Yeah.
but the paper said he resigned. Because to everybody, he literally beat up an innocent woman.
Yeah,
So
but we never got to see him
Yeah.
like talk back to the I don't know county captain or chief about what occurred or anything. And it doesn't seem he's fighting for trying to solve that.
yeah, it's interesting how he wasn't confused by that because he didn't know about the witch stuff at that point. He just saw this woman transform right before him and just decided to beat her up.
Yeah,
Yeah, just went right in. It was definitely a little weird,
and flirt
especially
with
since
him at his wife's funeral.
yeah, Stan's reaction to things is a little odd throughout the course of the episode because his reaction to his wife's room, sorry, his wife's sewing room was funny, but I don't know if it was in character.
How do you think he would have reacted?
In character, I think I was just expecting more than just like the oh wow, because he just found out his wife has been lying to him for however many years she's been doing that.
I think I can agree with
Uh,
that. I think there should have been a little more in his
Yeah,
facial expression or something, especially since prior we saw how emotional he got over the thought of almost shooting his daughter.
yeah, and over how he cracks a joke about how they're not allowed to go in there because neither of them were allowed to go in there. So, like I said, the joke is funny, but I don't think it's enough to be in character. Because there's so much more that he just found out, and it kind of turns him into I don't know. I feel like it degrades the character stuff for him, rather than and it obviously it's for the sake of a laugh.
Yeah, the stoic nature they go for a laugh rather than the emotional, like either the emotional hit, which they had earlier of like the touching, the keys we talked about, like how he's still not over fully of his wife passing, but then also like his connection to family with almost shooting his daughter could have been a little more exaggerated um, form of disbelief of entering the room. So I think either side probably would have been more in character than the oh wow for the joke.
okay. I guess you guys are pulling me a little bit towards your guys' thoughts. I didn't see it as off because the rest of the episode, or the whole episode, he kind of just rolls with the punches with anything. He doesn't seem to care about much stuff. His reactions to everything. I mean, even the old lady turning into a witch, he didn't care. He just went in for the beating. Um, when she tried to jump scare him at the gravesite, he turned around and said a joke about her appearance.
Yeah,
Uh,
Yeah,
he's
I agree
just a
that
guy
dry
that,
humor is a defense
uh,
mechanism, but
to
he's
yeah,
not
me,
alone. I
no.
mean, in all those scenarios except for this one.
To me, the thing he has the most emotional connection to is his wife, and this room is his
I would
wife's
agree.
room. I'm
Yeah,
fine with him being the jokey manner of townsfolk and Evie and Deputy Leon and anything else around.
the issue I had with the scene was him never being able to even see the room before after
Yeah, I
all
was
these
gonna.
years.
Yeah, and that's the next thing to dive into about this is he didn't. He's a sheriff, and he never bothered to ask any questions about that. He's never seen the inside of the room. His wife snuck out at night all the time when he was asleep, and evidently he just slept like a peach, like right through it. Because his daughter noticed that she always left. His daughter never accidentally mentioned anything. There's a lot of coincidences to make that happen. Very, very convenient.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture, like, there's no way he ever walked by when she enters the room and gets a peek. There's presumably he's been sheriff for years, a long time. We don't really get when he started being sheriff, but it'd have to be from the beginning that she's been protecting him,
Presumably.
and she seems established based off of her room. So yeah, I definitely think
Mm.
there would be some hints to some strange things going around with Claire that he was completely oblivious to.
Yeah, the only thing that's pulling me into that is the passing the door where it could have been open over the course of 28 years.
28 was that the time frame for a sheriff?
That's the time for, yeah. Stan was the
Okay,
sheriff for 28 years. Um,
that's right.
but
100 years haven't been tied up.
but we don't know if he's been married for 28 years. Claire's been like, was she protecting him before marriage? So, whole story to that we don't know. But being that it's his wife's sanctuary of where she goes to cool down or whatever, I can see that as a respect of the husband of like, okay, that's your place, more like a man cave for a guy. Could be the respect on the same side. So I see that as fine if she, tidies it, cleans. There's no house problems like flickering or anyone needs to be called. Maybe she takes care of that herself of the room. And then sneaking out at night, Stan seems the guy who would be on a strict schedule of work. So if he just sleeps through it, he sleeps through it because she's not doing anything in the house. It's always outside. And the daughter, I just see is younger, so stays up later and knows. And may have had a promise or something with the mom to not reveal anything to Stan, or just doesn't matter because of how she's kind of zany, not eating for 3 days kind of thing. So it just never popped up until the death of her mom to reveal it. And even then, she just brought it up in a conversation, not just out of her own to bring it up to Stan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with Stan not knowing she leaves at night. My issue is Denise would have spilled the beans. Even if it was for some selfish thing, like, well, mom went out last night and she didn't get me any food, so I didn't eat last night. She would bring up something um, after the course of her life of mom leaving every night. Something would
Yeah,
spill.
afterward. Okay, yeah. I'm
So
like, I don't know how
I'm sure
disciplined or aggressive
he
or
would
whatever the
know.
mom has been in 28 years around Denise, or Stan for that matter.
So
We don't know the
I'm
character of her.
sure, yeah, Denise would relay it to Stan unintentionally. I'm fine with Stan sleeping through it because I agree he does seem like the guy that would just have a schedule for sleep. He just wants to do nothing all day. It's exhausting doing nothing all day, so you just want to sleep all day.
Yeah. He could be one, like a tree falls down outside and he still sleeps through it. Like that could just be played as a simple one line character thing they do later if they need be.
Yeah, and I agree that Stan's the kind of guy that would respect her room boundaries. If she's like, I want this room, it's mine, don't go in, he would respect that. But as I said, uh, a peek.
Yeah.
Whenever he walks by the hallway and she enters it, there would be something after all these years. There would absolutely be something.
Yeah. That's what
Unless
I
she
started with.
never
Could be.
ever enters that room while he's at the house.
And the only other thing I guess I can kind of tailor that a little is that the door is not, if the peak of the creek in the door frame was what he saw, it would be a wall of just a couple papers. And it wouldn't be the weapon wall, which is hidden behind the door. So I guess that kind of aids it, but
I mean, even the photo wall looks weird.
yeah,
Was the windows covered? Or
I think
like
they were just
were the
closed.
curtains covering it? That okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're
That
just
makes sense.
closed, so there's potentially a view from outside.
But yeah,
Sprite, you got a point to jump to.
yeah, he tears the skin off the witch's arms.
With
Yeah,
the
they more
broad
just
daylight
glide
screen.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah, falls off his ladder, and Just lays on the ground.
The skin was already rotting. I mean,
Also, upon his fall, I think it's an error from what I could see. He falls backwards off the roof and lands on his stomach, and the window we see behind Denise shows what I could tell the back falling to the ground.
yep.
So unless A, when we see him on the ground, he's rolled over, or B, while in the air from the bottom of the window to the ground, he flipped.
I'd have to see it again.
He could have
And
rolled over onto his chest and just decided to lay there, but I don't. It's still an odd cut.
yeah, like landing on his back hurt his back, so he rolled over to relieve it. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
we don't see him roll over.
it's probably an error. But I didn't catch it, so I don't know. And are we to assume the witch played with the satellite to get him to fix it, just for
Sure.
him to fall off the roof? Is that what we're going with this scene?
Being that she's at at the house, sure.
I'd like to imagine she has like built her own step ladder and everything, so she can get up there. Because she doesn't teleport or anything or fly, so
I thought we see, but she definitely has some sort of magical capabilities, just because of Karen and her transformations.
yeah. And electricity. That
Yeah.
likes to go all fuzzy when she's in the area.
Oh, that could
we
be
don't really know the limits of the witches.
Well, then that would be real weird. If her being in the area is what caused the TV to go staticky when the lights in the house didn't get affected.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it would be, though.
Unless it's a
And
very
even
short
that
range.
at the police station, the lights were already flickering before all that. When she first entered the building, Evie, not
Okay.
just when the witch was there.
Mind you, this is Stan's first time encountering all of this. Is it in character for him to react to pulling skin off of a witch to make a joke of it instantly?
I feel it's within Stan. I don't feel it would be a normal human reaction, but I don't
I
see
think
Stan
it
as
might
very
be
normal.
okay because for the last 28 years as sheriff, things have been trying to kill him. I don't know how efficient Claire is, other than that she's efficient enough to keep Stan alive. But how many things has Stan seen within that years that are like this?
All we know, this is all new to him. That's pretty much what he says. We have a throwaway line that's what he says. Like, it's all new to him. But
Yeah.
if that's what you guys are leaning, okay. If you think he's encountered something like this before, I guess it makes more sense that why he wouldn't react to that.
Well, if he saw her transform at the funeral into this witch of practically shapeshifting with how fast it is, then I guess pulling the skin off of the same woman wouldn't be that shocking.
It'd be shocking to you because you've never done that before.
Pull the skin off of some, no, but I'm just saying to the same being that you know has some kind of magical essence because of what happened earlier. If it was a completely stranger and something happened, like, zombified situation, then I think there would be more shock.
Well, Ryder, I'll ask the same question before when you asked whether or not it's in character. What do you think Stan would have done?
um, I don't know Stan well enough to tell you the truth. One of my issues with this pilot is I have no idea who Stan is as a character by the end, other than he's a dry humor person.
He's a dry humor person.
That lends into one of my larger issues of what I see as a big problem. The hook to the episode is obviously he's there to save somebody. We learn throughout this episode he's willing to sacrifice both of them for the sake of just feeling right by the way he drags her back to his house instead of explaining things while he's standing over there of the grave, just to feel self-righteous. I view that as inconsistent. And then when we are supposed to have a full idea of who he is by the end of the pilot, and he's there doing the end again, uh, it just makes his character more confusing because the getting the full ending scene, which didn't clarify anything, it just played out more of the dry humor.
Well, I guess the difference being one has more stakes than the other. The At the graveyard, he doesn't really. There's no immediate threat going on there. There's the perception of a threat going on, but at the end part, there she's kidnapped. She's going to die. That there is a threat that lies before him. So there could be more of a reactionary trait to him, where he's willing to do the righteous right thing when presented, but only when it's presented, perhaps.
So why
That
wasn't it
fits this
presented
one.
to him to just explain to her the situation, what was going on by the grave? Because that also is a right situation that presented itself.
I mean, like in a immediate threat type deal. At the gravesite, the witch isn't an issue yet. Immediately, they know they have to deal with her, which is why he's getting it to read the book to find things out. But she's not an immediate danger. At the cemetery, she's an immediate danger, so he's going to face the immediate danger.
Are we presuming the witch also dug up the grave? This is a side question, sorry.
The witch dug up the grave.
Yeah, there's a shovel there. He arrives with his shovel.
Yes, because she has the scene thing around her neck.
Okay.
Yes.
Uh,
Okay, yeah.
yeah,
Goodness.
I don't know if you moved me on that, Crimson. I view that still as an inconsistency. The uh we know he's willing to save somebody, but he's also willing to sacrifice them for the sake of a joke. And the immediate threat doesn't play much into it because at that point the witch has haunted the both of them. So the witch has already presented herself as an immediate threat. We're lucky the witch just hasn't killed them outright at this point. We talked about that earlier too.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Guess we're at an impasse because I'm not moved either. I see him as just going with the flow with everything. Um,
He very well could be, but I don't know if there's enough of that in here for me to justify that as his solidified character trait. Like I said, what I know he has is I know his personality very well. I don't know his character very well, and those are I can't really reconcile those two things with the pilot that I've given with regards to Stan.
mhm.
Like I know he's no nonsense. I know he's misses his wife. I know he has a very dry humor about him, but none of those inform his thought process with decision making that I can understand from the pilot. Because with his decision making process, there are inconsistencies.
A detail I
Well,
see in that I can pick up as well that I think helps aid to Stan's character is that he wants to protect the town. For being a sheriff for so long and then even resigning, he still stayed in his building for 3 days. But that could also be just a grieving process and not wanting to go home to face the music kind of thing. But even Evie calling herself sheriff seems to offend him at times, which could just be he's not used to it. But it seems he's still in the mindset of protecting the town and being the sheriff. So I think that could also go into his thought process in decisions of what he
So,
does.
how do you reconcile that with his choice to do nothing or wanting to do nothing while he's trying to get the TV to work?
There's no immediate threat. Like Crimson brought up, he doesn't know about the witch situation.
No, he does. At that point, he would know about the witch. Not necessarily to, not what the witch has done to Evie, but at that point, he's already met the witch at the graveyard. Not his wife's funeral. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think we're
Or,
gonna mix of a threat and an immediate threat. What how do we view what immediate threat means? I guess
Did
because
I say immediate threat?
well, Spriggs and I have been using immediate threat as in it's happening, it's about to happen, and it sounds like you've been using that as in threat in general. Because him at the couch, I don't see him as seeing an immediate threat. I just he's aware of a threat. There's no immediate threat to him here.
Like he just knows there's a scary lady who scared him.
That he saw transform.
Yeah. We never know or anything of the other end of Stan thinking like as of a grieving process, this is in his head of what he saw of the lady.
I I don't, to be honest, I'm thinking about what you said, Sprinks, about him wanting to protect the town. I don't know if I have enough information to infer that about him, other than he's been a sheriff for 28 years, which theoretically should give you enough reason to care about a town, but I don't really see him go out of the way to help anybody or talk to anybody.
Yeah, we don't get much of his interaction with the town
The
No.
in
closest that we get to
general.
that is the interaction with the priest, who he pretty much demeans. Because,
That's true. And who knows? He might not even like the town because they potentially forced him to resign. Like we said, we don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think my words of what I meant are too far on a scale of what I
mhm.
kind of mean. Not so like self-righteous paladin chief guy, police chief guy.
yeah, and I know you're
Um,
just saying
just
that it might be
well-being.
enough that the drive is there, right?
I got it from the Evie conversation when Evie calls herself sheriff and how that affects him.
Yeah, he was proud of his title, for sure. And an aspect to I think Stan's character, at least through this pilot, is the writers really wanted to show his hypocrisy with his statements, like his comments of like women answering questions with questions. He does that. He talks about how it's a way to divert from answering and asserting a type of dominance or strength. And then he doesn't answer her question to assert dominance or strength. Uh, and what was the other example I had with the exact same thing? Oh, women are always right. I have to be right today, next week, all month. And the whole reason he went to the house was to prove her wrong and how he was right. So
Yeah,
I think
I
it
wrote
was
those
all
down,
for the
but
hypocrisy's sake, which I guess could be more towards the writer's intents instead of the actual characters. But
yeah, unfortunately, because that's cool information to have, but within the context of the pilot, it comes off as inconsistent. That I understand it is hypocrisy, but I think that lends more to the inconsistency with Stan in at least the pilot. I think that's something I can reconcile if that's going forward. Um, but I subscribe to Death of the Author, so I have to take what I'm given. But that is cool information to know if that's what they intended.
I mean, that's what I'm picking up based off of his actions and what he said. I can see the parallels there.
Yeah. That's good. It still doesn't help me understand his character though. Other than it just adds on the character trait of him being a hypocrite.
Um, yeah, I don't. I think we're a stalemate. I just see his uh, need to be right or to demean her as higher than how he views the danger of the situation.
Yeah. All right.
I don't remember who started with that point, but we'll go with Sprinks.
Hey, that's me. Um, let's go to Karen the Talking Head.
Okay.
Um, it's a part that really changed kind of the tone of the pilot to me, of being like somewhat believable of a witch to Halloween
We're going
Town
full.
zany.
Yeah, we're going.
Yeah, I'm going with the thought that this is something the witch has power of doing.
Oh
That's I
yeah.
think all I can have here. The reason
I
why
don't
she
think
kept
that's
Karen
Karen's
alive,
power.
though, no. But the reason why she kept Karen alive, couldn't tell you. Don't know. Maybe a
I think it's just
distraction.
a toy,
Is that it?
toy
But
with Evie.
yeah, and then if Karen's even in like not mind controlled, but her mind's not set right, like she would
Yeah,
probably be
but
more
she's off.
scared or crying or situation like that than laughing that Evie gets bonked on the head.
Why can't I move my head? Why do I feel shorter than I was earlier?
I'm dead. Why am
I'm
I
so
talking?
confused. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
Unless
really for me what introduced the like Ash versus Evil Dead kind of feel to it.
unless it's to play that this is the witch having an effect on Evie being of her presence being there, and this is just what Evie's seeing. When to everyone else, it would actually just be the decapitated head of Karen.
I can say it's possible, but they don't do anything to convey that.
No, there's no one else around to prove that fact.
But in terms of the vibe, since it's been brought up, the creator, Donna Gold, talked about how she came up with the tone of the show. And she took heavy inspiration from American Werewolf in London. That was apparently the inspiration for the tone.
Okay, guess I can see that.
Yeah.
Of what I know of that.
Yeah, she wrote she felt like they featured humor that didn't sacrifice the horror or heart of the story. But according to writer, it sounds like they did in this.
Um.
For the heart, I guess, yeah. Horror,
Uh.
no. I mean, the horror I think is
mm,
on par with the comedy of what they have, or what they use.
Yeah, I think it works well in terms of like, I guess the tone. I think they did their tone very well. Like I was never pulled out of it so much that like I thought it was absurd the tone. Uh,
No, but
my issues is
the
all my issues.
humor is
Yeah.
damaging the character to you.
Um, with
Like the way
Stan.
he reacts damages
Yeah, there's
him.
just definitely a couple instances where I think it does damage the character. Um, but I don't think wouldn't say it affects the plot of the story. I guess so. There's those two aspects. I guess.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things with I think might be off with Stan a little bit is after he fell on the ground with the skin in his hands. He's like he gets up. He's like, "I'll take care of it." Like, you don't know what you're taking care of yet, but sure, go ahead, Stan. You're a big macho man. You can figure it out. uh, which it's once again, I think it's just him being full of himself, which I think makes sense to him. But it's also kind of showing he's kind of a little dense as well there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if I have. I don't know if I have any issues with him wanting to take care of himself. So, my I guess my issues are very specific.
Mhm.
no, I've thought that that at least has been something he's been doing a long time. Is any situation that has arisen, he's done by himself, or sees it as he's doing by himself. Whether how much Claire is pulling the strings in the background, um, or
With
Deputy
how much he
Leon is
also,
doing jack shit is my best
yeah,
guess.
yeah, I imagine he has had to do all of the work himself because of, as you said, his deputy. The way he demeans him, you assume that he doesn't contribute in any way meaningful. So I was fine with that. I suppose the want to do something to do it to try and figure it out himself.
And what else was there going to be? Yes, Grace, Evie's daughter. Wish we got to see more of her relationship with Evie.
Yeah, we got a phone call before she got kidnapped.
Yeah, and then she gets like bewitched or something,
Yeah,
and that's it. I didn't feel much there. It's like, oh, okay, this
it's
is
just
big stakes
yeah,
apparently.
they're
Uh,
just they're definitely implying like they're expecting the audience's care for the daughter to be implicit because she's the daughter of a main character.
yes, heavily relying on that.
It's got a
Because
form of heart, but not a emotional pack that it could have had for a if it was a 45-minute pilot.
Yeah.
yeah,
This
there's
would have definitely benefited from being a longer pilot.
mhm. And yeah, I agree. We can all attribute mother daughter big stakes. I think what they failed is giving the audience a reason to care about their relationship. Because I Evie makes sense. I think she talks about Grace enough to I believe her love for her daughter and stuff. And
Yeah,
that's
we don't
fine.
really get anything the other way.
Yeah, we don't get much with Grace towards Evie, and we don't get much as an audience with with Grace either. For us to even care about Grace. So there is something missing there to
I
build for the
think
finale of the
if
episode.
I were to add like 15 quick seconds, I would probably add it for Grace and Evie, and it would be uh, just a quick scene about how they moved out here so Grace can spend more time with her because it's a small town and nothing goes wrong in a small town. It's like part of the reason that they moved out here is so that they can spend more time together because it's just the two of them.
I think
Yeah,
that the horror element
I don't think that'll be bad.
that would have aided without actually adding additional time is during the part where Karen the Talking Head's talking to Evie and the witch pops up. You hear Grace in the background screaming for her mom.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
No, I'm saying it's
No,
not
no, he's
there. I'm
saying that
saying to
would be
aid
Oh,
to
adding
it.
it.
add that. Okay. Okay.
Like when
Uh,
when you say when
yeah.
Evie arrives at the house, you mean?
Yeah, because Karen's decapitated, so Grace the kid is with the witch's presence in her, already
Oh
kidnapped at that
yeah,
point. But then the witch gets Evie, so it's like,
yeah. The
where is
witch just
Grace at
kind
that
of
point?
teleports and knocks her out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Evie's
Yeah,
like,
no, that would work.
"Where's
I think.
Grace?" And I forgot what she
Yeah,
says, but she's not. Grace isn't there.
so
Yeah,
like it
we
would
don't
have
hear
added
anything.
a little more of the horror for a kid to be screaming, a little more like scared, and then I think more to what we're saying of Grace to her mom
Hmm.
without adding additional time.
Yeah, the problem is that without that additional time, it still can come across as generic
Yeah,
because it's more again, it's more implicit, like expectation that the audience just needs to care about them because mother and daughter relationship, which is fine. You can definitely do that, but the more you give an audience, the more likely they're going to care. You know.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, for you guys, how do you like the premise of the show being set up here? The world we're jumping into.
well, I would have said that for summary out of me, but I think witch trials are too overdone. I don't
Well,
know if
that you've gone through.
that I've gone through. Yes, it's a premise of horror that I'm not a fan of, not the biggest fan of.
All right. Uh, what about you, right?
I'm thinking of whether I find it interesting. I'm like, yeah, the world building itself as a premise is fine. I don't mind it as a foundation. I think Sprinks and I actually, funny enough, have had a lot of conversations about horror in the last few months because I've been dragging our group through a horror show on our movie nights. So I think Springs, you have a very specific facet of horror usually that you like to go through.
I can say so.
Yeah. For me, with regards to this show, I funny enough, my when it first comes to mind is just like, yeah, it's there. I don't have any strong feelings towards it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For me, I think it's a decent premise for a show because I could see a lot of like historical background stuff they could toy with
Yeah.
and could be interesting. And I don't know how they could have like 172 unique witches because in my mind they would all do very similar things, but maybe they're not all your traditional
Well,
witches.
yeah, you got Ida from Owl House, you got Hocus Pocus, you got Hex Girls, you got tons of witches.
Yeah. You got the Cromwells and
Calibars. No,
whatever.
wait, they're warlocks. Never mind.
Trying to remember Practical Magic, what their names. Whoopsies.
Miracle
Embarrassing.
Max's wife.
I'm not a witch. I'm your wife.
Yeah, plenty of witches.
Um,
Too bad there's only
Liar!
there's
24
Liar!
episodes for 171 witches.
We've
Unless,
covered a few witches on this podcast. Now that I'm
unless,
thinking about it.
yeah.
yeah, in the span of 24 episodes, you say of the 3 seasons, there was only 24 witches left.
Could be. Could
Could
be.
be.
And
There is
Evie was
definitely
just completely wrong.
yeah. There's definitely a sense of I don't know. I don't know if it was general interest in the the world building premise itself, because I don't mind using archetypes. Like, yeah, okay, yeah. Like when I heard them talk about the 171 witch trials, I assumed that was set up. So like I said, they gave themselves groundwork and a foundation to work from. So I think the world building is done well enough in that aspect.
Mm. Something to expect going forward. Kind
Yeah.
of like the Friday the 13th show where they set up, well, we need to find all these artifacts.
Oh my
None
god.
of ours. None of ours, just Uncle Lewis's stuff for some reason. But yeah. For Stan versus Evil, I will say it did get canceled, so they didn't actually finish what they wanted with the show. I don't know how it ends, but they did not get to go all the way.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, I picked
Ryder,
up
you got
and
a point.
never mind.
Sprinks, you got
Ryder,
a
go
point.
ahead. I do, but Ryder, go ahead.
um, I suppose something that was aesthetically pleasing for me is while Evie's trying to read off the spell book, Stannis just takes a pipe to the witch over and over again, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, where he's just
Nonchalant.
groveling, talking to her while the chant's going or the ritual.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very funny. He's like, "Can't taste the medicine." Ugh. Yeah, yeah. Ugh.
Being, yeah, that is humorous. To me, though, being that neither one of them fully knows what they're doing, it would make sense that Stan's doing that, even though the curse of the salt ring could affect Stan since he's in it
I mean, it could be a
before he
witch
walks out.
specific ritual.
Yeah. But by the way, did how did she get out of the salt thing? I thought that was the whole point of it, is that they can't cross it.
Well, I think they have to be within it during the ritual, right? I don't think it's a physical barrier.
Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
it's like a big force field that would stop her from exiting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I,
I don't know. That might have been that might have been confusion on my part then, because I assumed that's what it was supposed to do until they banished it. But sure.
It's not like
I know
Spiderwick.
that's pretty common and stuff.
Yeah, like I said, I'm willing
Yeah.
to believe that this has different rules, so I'm not surprised if I misinterpreted that.
And then she vomits all over Evie because
Yeah,
why not?
Yeah,
it's getting the good old disgusting bits for the show.
Yeah. Which the vomit just disappears when she's reading the ritual. This poof gone.
Yep.
She's all clean and better now.
yep. See, the end to me really rushed in a couple errors that were overlooked. Like
Mm.
Evie being clean, you just pointed out. The witch pulling out a torch out of thin air. Um, I thought Stan having condiments on him was fine if that's in his back pocket and that he does, but he had that much salt to cause that significant of a rain to be visual from the angle. I thought that was too much
Yeah. I
for the packet he held.
why did he have a pipe on him? I understood the joke, but why did he have a pipe?
I don't know. Was that in his duffel bag? Because he had a shovel.
Yeah. Why would he bring his double bag at all?
Um,
He's there to dig up the grave. So I was so confused why he had a duffel bag with presumably is where the pipe was all along.
it's his trusty pipe that he certainly hasn't used on suspects before. I don't know. I can't tell you. It just appears.
Okay. I'm like, I don't know why he would need a pipe if he has a shovel.
Yeah. I don't even know where the second shovel came from, if that's the witches or if that was Evie's and the witch just took it from their house.
Oh, to me that was fine. That could have been at the church by the graveyard. She just had a shovel or found one.
They just left it after the funeral.
After the funeral. Oh,
Possible.
sure.
Yeah. The packets. Uh, it is meant for a joke. I don't know why he would carry them with him this whole time though. I would get he would steal them, but why would he have them on him?
So he can
And
always add more to his collection, obviously.
yeah,
Yeah. Use it whenever he
you never know when
has a
you need
meal.
that many. Yeah. Uh, but yeah, the amount they have, I agree, it's a bit much for what we see. The only positive I can go with it is if you look at the circle, you can also see they put the paper packets there, so it kind of looks more full than it is.
It's still a lot of salt.
It
It
is.
is.
Yeah.
No disagreement here. The CGI in this
Oh,
has some okay, but has some bad.
It's
The
there.
it has more bad than
the
good.
fake blood on his hits of the witch, not good. That's
Terrible.
not good.
They should
Yeah,
just
that's something you
gone
could
with
get from like a
practical.
mobile app or something. You said mostly bad, Springs. What other things do you think are just bad?
Oh, I thought the blood usage was um um pretty horrendous for a pilot. Whereas the practical usage of makeup and effects that they have or did use along with that scene as well, um, looked fine and passable. I don't know if they didn't have the um, effects or usages to make, or maybe they even tried using practical and it just didn't look as gruesome as they wanted it to be, so they did do visual effects.
Yeah, I couldn't find a budget for this show, but considering this was on network television and not a streaming service, and it only having 8 episodes, implies that it did not have a very big budget
Yeah, and
because network
also
television usually doesn't have that low of a season count.
we already
So,
touched on how jumpy the pace of the show is, but the first half, or actually first 3/4, I'd say, is very understanding to what's going on. But the end bit, I guess, when you see Karen on the chair, like the decapitated head to the end, just feels very pushed. Like they ran out of time rather than like actually spacing everything out to like cut to kind of blunt. It really felt like a lot was pushed at the end, which I don't know, made it stand out as not great. Like the head thing to me was like, oh, that's a big jump from just people dying, and then the bad CGI usage and the kind of rush of fear of horror they're playing to Evie with stand presence and just seemed a bit much. The only thing that seemed fine to me was that the lead pipe was embedded in her head, in the witch's head while she's crawling. I think that's fine if her, skull's caved in for the pipe to rest
yeah,
there.
yeah, that's possible. Yeah, I mean, just based off the facts I threw out there of like writing a season in 6 days, each episode filming roughly within 3 days. It certainly seems like they were rushing the show out the door. I wouldn't know
Yeah.
what reasons behind it, but
But that's upsetting for a pilot.
I agree. Uh, I think the very very end when the credits are starting to roll and they're walking through the woods talking about, oh, there's 171 left now. I was like, they just tacked this on real quick here while the credits are going. This needs to be longer. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
And that,
pretty rushed pilot.
unfortunately, can't blame that onto them because it's probably a studio decision or a lot of time or whatever. But I think the saddest thing is that it should have been longer for the story they had
Yeah,
envisioned.
yeah, I agree. And I think it would help for their episodes, presumably, learning about the witches they're going to be taking down. Because this witch, what was it, Stella or something?
Stella
Don't,
Stannis.
yeah, Stella. We don't really know anything about her other than she was a witch and got burned at the stake. It's it would be nice to learn about each of the witches, and I don't know if they go and continue that going forward, but it's an element missing here to where I would care about Stella as the witch. She's just I'm a cackling witch. We don't we don't feel bad that she was killed or anything.
No. It, no, I'm in agreement. But
Certainly a missing element that a longer episode would help with.
yeah. Only thing I think that's passable for that is like it's a pilot thing, and it's like this could be like a really low stake lackey witch kind of thing, so it didn't need a whole story. But it would have been
Yeah,
cool for me at least that they got more of an understanding of a witch. I mean, they did. They're like, oh, this is part of the 171 or 172 witch thing of the town and the sheriff curse. So it did aid to that, which I think is passable and fine. I don't think this witch needed a whole backstory and reasoning, um, only to die within 22 minutes.
Yeah, she
I mean,
doesn't
her
need to be
reasoning's
fully
to just
fleshed out.
kill a sheriff.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an avenue they could have taken. And it would have. Well, no, they could have made it funny. I was like, maybe it would make the balance off to them, but I think it would. They could make stuff funny about it.
It also opens a lot of questions I kind of have of like, can only one witch be active at a time? Like, is the energy of the curse to keep them going only allow one at a time? Like, what's not stopping 70 witches from, busting down the sheriff's office and killing the sheriff?
Yeah,
Like, do they
that
work
crossed
together?
my mind as well.
Like that,
And
I
I
figured
don't
that
know.
could be more answered later in episodes and seasons.
Yeah, feel the same way. We're in a presumably small town, and it'd be weird if half the town were witches that nobody knew about.
Yeah.
There turns out they're Halloween Town in disguise. Is that what you're saying?
Could be. Who knows? Turns out
Um,
Claire was a witch herself and just wanted
we
to end
don't.
the curse by killing
Maybe
all the witches.
you're talking about season 3 stuff. Careful.
Yeah. Ooh, right. I could be hidden the
You
money.
could be in the. You're connecting the dots to like Soul Suspect. Careful there.
Spoilers potentially for Soul Suspect.
Well, I'm not going any further. Um, do you guys think the Raven thing is a witch?
And probably, I mean, all we have in terms of world building with supernatural in this show is they're witches. Don't know if there's going to be werewolves or something else, demons. I don't know. So, from a pilot perspective, I'm going to go with witch.
Yeah,
Okay.
for specifically for the pilot, I'm assuming it's a witch unless they tell me otherwise explicitly.
Okay. Would that then, with what we just talked about, Crimson, being that we see it at the end after the death of this witch in the pilot, do you think that's possibly leads into the 111, like only one at a time, or do you think it's could be all active or not connected at all?
I think the writers. I don't want to do a blanket statement based off one episode. Um, they would have to explain why it would be one at a time or not all at once. That is something they didn't do in the pilot. And I think it would be worse if it was one for one. I think it would be nice if there's like an episode where there's four going after him or something. But it would all need explanations going forward.
Okay. I'm in the same boat.
It'd be funny if we were reading this show entirely wrong and the 171 which is just a red herring. So it's gonna be something unique every episode that we deal with.
Yeah. Next one's a zombie, actually.
Well, it also could be that like the witch have different powers or possessions. Like one actually makes lycanthropes, and one makes zombies, and one is
Could be.
one's invisible, and so, like all these things.
Well, yeah, I would imagine some of them would have to be just to make them stand out from the others. It'd be quite boring if every episode's pretty much the
The
same witch
same,
over and
yeah.
over again.
Then again, it could lead to a reasoning of cancel. Don't know.
Apparently had decent ratings, but couldn't find much on its actual cancellation. It probably just didn't have high viewing numbers, would be my guess. See, I'm running a little on the thin side on notes already. What are you guys looking like? Who wants to go
Oh,
next?
mine's pretty much done with the Raven
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, mine are gone.
I do think the
Oh,
effect of the Raven looked good.
I think everything I have less I have left is more questions, but they're like can be saved for recap. So
they're not specific to this episode.
You mean as in
uh,
like a broad question?
yeah, let's see. I'm going through my notes again right now. Don't see anything to that's jumping out at me that hasn't already been brought up in one way or another. So
Well, we talked a lot about how Stan reacts to situation he's in. We haven't talked much on Evie's reactions of what she's in. What do you guys think?
I think it's believable. She freaks out. I mean,
I
the
wouldn't say freaks out. She takes it pretty well.
first instance, I think she's kind of petrified in fear when it's in the office. Second time, I think it's actually Karen's head seems her main focus is to find her daughter. And then looking at the witch again, I think really scares her, so that's fine. The panicking on the stake, I think it's fine. Yeah, I think it's passable for what she portrays.
Mm. Yeah, it just seemed a lot. It tuned it down to me. I do like how she's proactive. She wants to face the problem head on. That's why she goes to Stan for assistance. But the headless thing, she doesn't react to it really. It's like, oh my gosh, Karen, where's Grace? I feel like there should have been a larger reaction towards that. And shoot, I have another point. What else about Evie? Darn it, it flew away. But how do you feel about her and Stan's dynamic? Think it's going to be a good setup going forward?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good bouncing off each other. And do you think Stan is a character that will change drastically, or he'll pretty much be himself the whole time?
I'm hoping it's him being him most of the time with a slight gradual change in character arc.
Yeah, like
For
obviously, I
example,
think
being a little
he'll
more kind to
learn
women.
to. Well, if not women as a whole, he'll definitely grow to respect Evie. I think, or I would imagine. We haven't really been introduced to many women in this. One lost her head, and one's a witch, and then there's Evie and her daughter. Oh, and I
and
guess
Stan's
Denise,
daughter.
but Denise is yeah, Denise is Denise. Maybe she's the reason Stan has his viewpoints.
That would be funny to find out. So he takes it out on everybody but his daughter.
Going with this episode could be, with what I've seen of episode 8 by accident, I probably shouldn't share.
Probably not. Don't want to spoil it for Ryder because Ryder's probably been watching the entire series, being only 24 episodes. Seem to really like it here.
Oh, you'll cement that
uh,
answer when he gives his rating summary.
yeah, that's true.
Uh, but Ryder, you didn't get to answer how Evie's reactions to everything have gone because we talked about Stan's reactions to everything. How do you feel Evie's reacted?
Let's see. I think the actress does a good job. Her babysitter not answering, I think would be a reasonable thing to show up. She's doesn't freak out at the sight of a head as much as I would have expected for being more new at this, but at least she does have a decent reaction otherwise. Um,
Yeah, I felt like with the head, she was tuned down a bit too much. I feel like there would have been a more reaction.
yeah, I think I'm in agreement with that. I feel like there would be a little bit more anyway. I think otherwise she's great. It's more of her just she's the new person in town, so she's just more reacting to things and how people act here than like cementing herself as who she is as a character, which is fine. That's what the rest of the show is for.
How do you feel about her relationship with Stan? You think it's going to be pretty good going forward? Do you like it here?
There's room for growth. Um, with how it is here, it's obviously more antithetical is not the right word, but it's more like they're butting heads constantly, which works. It'll be interesting to see if they form a partnership going forward and stuff like that. So there's room to grow, which I suppose is what a good thing for a pilot.
Yeah, and I will say, uh, I did not continue the pattern of my previous two pilot picks. This was not Steam
Warehouse
because of
13.
Warehouse 13. Yeah, so I did not continue the pattern. I could have, because there's another show like Warehouse 13, but I did not have that planned as a theme.
Was this when did this come out?
2016, and I saw it when it was
Oh,
airing.
okay. So it wasn't following your pattern of the what was it, 89, 99, and then
Oh
2009?
no, I was not matching the years. That's right. Let's see. Oh, they talk about the Salem witch trials burning 20 witches, which didn't happen in Salem.
No.
They were only hung and had the rocks crushing them and whatnot. No Salem burnings.
Yay. I guess.
Yeah,
No.
Whoop-de-doo.
Alright.
thrown off
Uh,
the thrown out that they got a witch fact wrong in the witch show, or maybe in this universe that's a correct fact. I don't know. Yeah, since you guys are thin on notes or just flat it out, I guess I will also say I'm out.
Oh, good, fitting.
Oh, never
Alright.
mind. Found one.
All
Boom.
right, cool. Not
See,
fitting.
look at me,
Look at
the
that.
filthy liar I am. I
Oh,
had two more
you.
points. Yes. Uh, the bags of skin, as he put it, he was holding, not good. That didn't look good at all. I think the face makeup for the witch in general is okay, passable, as Sprink said. But that fake skin looks like they got that at Spirit Halloween or something. It's not good.
They
Had
got it.
definitely had that sticky rubber kind of look.
They got it out of the trash can of an Arby's.
Some moldy cheese. The effect of him actually getting pulled off her arms was pretty decent, but when he's lying on the ground holding them, they look terrible. And
I
then the
concur.
other bit may be controversial, but I'm throwing it out there because they spent like a minute on it. The Starsky and Hutch joke. I found that pretty amusing coming out of Stan. I found a lot of Stan's humor because it hilarious because nobody talks like that anymore, and if they do, they just get erased from the public eye. They get canceled and stuff. So I don't know. It's an interesting humor that I don't get to see much of anymore. Did you guys like the joke? Did it go on too long, perhaps?
For Stan? Or you're
I
asking
mean,
what I think of his humor?
did you enjoy the Starsky and Hutch thing? Did it go on too long?
I think
And
it
I guess
fit
you
his
could talk about his
character.
humor in general.
It's fit his character, not my sense of humor. I don't think I laughed at anything in this. Except for the one line.
Okay, okay. It's just me. I'm an old man.
We know
All
this.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do know this. Okie dokie. We will go into the ratings summary portion, the largest portion. Probably not this
It is
time.
the last portion. Well, a
It is
portion.
the last. And we shall start with Sprinks.
Oh boy. Let's see. Let's start with my subjective. This is a show that I'm like very okay, cool. I don't have to ever see an episode again, but I could see an episode again. I watching this, two things came to mind that it reminded me of that I think do this better. One being Evil Dead, and the other being Grimm. I think both of those fit kind of the premise of what this show is doing in a more enjoyable way. So I give this subjectively a 5. Not as bad as one could think, but just yeah. So my objective did funny enough, after finishing it, wrote it down, and then gave it a day, and looked at it, and I went, "Why did I write that?" And completely changed it. So my objective dropped 3 points. I don't know why my initial start. I think I was too subjective in my objective accidentally. Like yikes, of just the things I liked and not focused on the things that were bad with it. So let's see. The acting is all fine. I think it's very on par. Jeez. We talked about how Stan's emotions and times were very just stoic, and I think that's, or I brought that out, and I think that's just him, but that doesn't show a lot of acting in a range. I think the best portrayals he did was just talking about his wife at parts. I think the story's fine. It's beginning to end, works well. The pacing of it, though, I think is very jumpy and upsettingly bad. Um, Again, the biggest thing that could have aided this was more time. I think the special effects, the practical effects and everything were passable and fine. Not as good, funny enough, as Halloween Town, Calabar's Revenge with the mom, which, but then again, that could be just a budget thing. I think the VFX usage of special effects in this were abysmal, and I think it would have been better if they just weren't there. I think the writing could have been better. Man, it's again beginning 3/4 I think were fine, and the last fourth very pushed, very rushed. And I think if it was written differently in how this 22 minutes would have gone, could have helped with the pacing and the overall storytelling of that. Cinematography, the best, most creative thing I could see was Dutch angles. Everything else was pretty stationary. I kind of wish there was more shots of two people talking to one another versus the back and forth of one person talk, one person talk. Just they did that a couple times, and a couple over the shoulders. But I wish there was more two people interacting with each other of one shot. Um, let's see, editing, fine. Again, that kind of just goes into the pacing of being jumpy, but nothing like no star swipes, no editing choices, not very much someone walking past camera, and that's a transitional usage. It was just very bare bones. Um, of course, there's always something I forget. I guess lighting, definitely usage of artificial practical lighting at night. The torch work is there, but you can tell that's not the only light source illuminating everyone on the set. Um, Same with the graveyard. The daytime thing, everything looked fine in that. Actually really like the lighting in the sheriff's office with the closed windows, but still inside. In that, like, oh, the illumination from outside still illuminating inside enough without the windows open. I think that fit very well, especially with the tone of Sheriff Miller, kind of down in the dumps and grieving. Uh, yeah, of course I always forget something, but overall, I give it a 4. It could have been worse, but gosh, there was little. I mean, the little nits that I think could have been far better.
Okay, I'll have to sit on that one. Um, we can go with. We can go with me next. Why not? Subjectively, as I've mentioned, I've seen it a couple times. I've never seen it in its entirety, even though it only has a few episodes. And it's one I'm definitely willing to watch all the way through. Uh, so for that reason, I'm giving it a 7. Hopefully that I did not check my other subjectives, but I think a 7 is okay for this. Uh, it made me have funny moments. I didn't laugh out loud as I usually don't, but I did find stuff amusing in this. Stan is a character I enjoy because you just don't see Stan characters anymore. It's kind of a dead archetype, or they're usually played as a antagonist or bad guy character, not usually the protagonist anymore. Uh, because his views aren't really good views. And I liked his stuff with Evie. I think they bounce off each other quite well, and I think it would only get better going forward. Objectively, I think the visual effects in large are okay. Visual effects as in practical and CGI. I don't think all the CGI is bad. I think Karen's head looks okay. I don't think it looks bad. I think it just looks okay. The blood spurts with the pipe, that looks bad. The makeup in large is passable, excluding the skin part I mentioned. I think all the actors did fine. I think the lighting was actually pretty good in this, which is usually a topic I don't bring up. But they were well illuminated, but not too bright. It really set the tone because a good chunk of this was at night, and it just seemed very soothing to the eyes. In terms of the plot, we talked a lot about how this would be heavily strengthened by a longer runtime. I won't go through that too much, but it does cause pacing issues and a condensed ending. And because of the condensed nature of it, we didn't get anything really with Grace uh, as a character, but let alone her being a character, but just us caring about her as an individual in relation to Evie, which really hampered the ending bit for me. I said for me, that makes it more subjective. I think it wasn't good for that. So overall, I'm going to be giving this a objective 6. We'll go to writer.
All right. I'll start with my subjective. I'll do the same thing everybody else has said. Would I be willing to watch this? Willing? No. My subjective is at a 2. I didn't enjoy this flat
Jeez.
out. I could be dragged through this with alcohol and friends, and it's pretty much the only way you're going to get me to watch this. I'm not going to go. I saw the first episode, and that's good enough for me. I'm not coming back. Not willingly. Um, Objectively, let's see. I'll do world building. So world building is out of a small town. We have a lot of questions that we have left over remaining from the first 22 minutes of how was Stan's time as a sheriff? How good was his wife at witch hunting? How much did she protect him? Because we just assume it's wholesale. Yet there are witches cropping up now that she's gone. There's the magic at the end is done okay enough in the sense of we have set up for both the seeing stone and then them being able to read off the book, which is basic what's it called, MacGuffin stuff usually when it comes to magic. So I don't really have an issue with those two things as far as world building is concerned. I have mostly questions, and I think the issues that I might take with the issue that the world building that starts lending into issues for me tend to start with just how the magic system works, at least for this particular witch. She kind of appears in places. She could definitely do stuff with corpses, and she can do stuff with transport bodies, like, or dig up graves quickly. So there's a lot of questions that I have. She could have, for all we know, she could have hypnotized someone to dig the grave for her. But there's questions that I don't know how the witch accomplished certain things, and I'm tending to tie that into the world building because it could be explained away as magic, but they don't explain it away as magic. So that goes to the plot. We kind of talked about pacing. Yeah, pacing's an issue. Don't really know the motives of the witch, though the witch's actions drive the plot forward, and in some cases, characters making what I view are inconsistent decisions also drive the plot forward. So those on top of pacing issues makes the plot come across very weak to me. The last act, I think we've talked about it, I think is kind of, it feels very rushed. It would have been helpful if it was spread out a lot more. For characters, Denise, with what little we have her, fine. It's set up for later. What we have of the deputy in his short scene, we at least get an explanation as to why he has no interest in being sheriff, and it kind of is paid off within the context of this pilot. There's not really much else going on with him. The witch, I find her motive is revenge, I guess. And then her, I guess I have a lot of issues with her actions because she just lets people live for random reasons, and we have to just infer like that she wants to read the book, but we are not sure. So it's convenient otherwise without that information of why she chose not to kill Evie or uh, Stan. Evie as a character serves as a good introduction. She definitely has a bit of a fish out of water with her, but in our first interactions with her, we see that she has somewhat of a reasonable head on her shoulders in the sense of she is she knows she's an outsider. She knows she's not like an expert at her job. She has questions that need answering, and she's willing to go and at least seek help with regard to them, um, at least to a degree. So I think Evie's well characterized. I don't know if I have any inconsistencies with her as a character, though we did talk about her acting, but that doesn't really pertain to my objective. Stan, I still stand by what I said. I find him to be rather inconsistent, and I think for him having most of the screen time here, uh, I think that unfortunately is a problem. I like some of his humor. It tends to come across well to me, even if it's not my kind of humor. There's definitely something about the dry delivery that he encompasses that nonchalantness about him that I do like. Um, and then I already explained the inconsistencies. Um, Objectively, I'm at a 5. I think objectively could go lower, could go higher, but it's legitimately where I've been sitting. So
Okie dokie. Some surprising numbers on this one for me. All right. Well, that is it for Stan versus Evil.
Stand against evil.
Any
yeah,
what I say?
He said
he says Stan
versus.
versus Evil.
Gotcha.
Darn it, Brinks, you
Don't worry,
screwed me
Sprinks
up in
put
the
the wrong
beginning
one.
of this.
Yeah, don't worry, Sprinks put the wrong one in activity time.
I've said it right this entire time. Don't.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before Vita closes us out?
I don't think so. Next week is the finale, pilot, and then the recap.
Yes. All right then. Well, audience, thank you for listening. Whether it be Spotify, Anchor, Amazon, Castbox, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Samsung, and iHeartRadio. And if you happen to be on our visual side of things, be it YouTube, Rumble, watching our PNG tubers and slideshow, we really appreciate it. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe everywhere. Tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. As always, I have been a geeky writer,
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks.
and we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.